Welcome to filmmakers.
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 Hey, the filmmakers.
Journey.
And take your seat. The journey of a lifetime is about to begin.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Well, welcome Erik Hansen to the show. My first screenwriting teacher, a mentor of mine, I would say. First off, what is the best written movie and why is it Good Will Hunting?
Well, I'm not sure we'd agree about that, Warren. A lot of movies come to mind. I will say one of my favorites, and I know this is an obvious answer, but I love the Godfather novel.
Yeah.
I've probably read it about 20 times in my life.
Whoa.
I'll pick it up every couple of years, and once I get started with the novel, I can't stop. And I think the movie that was made from that book was the most perfect adaptation ever.
Really?
Yeah. So for me, the test of a great movie is, can I start watching at any point in the film that I happen to drop in and will be unable to leave? And and that's true of The Godfather. It's true of quite a few films. In the last year, I've been on a real kick watching old movies and have gone through David Lean, Alfred Hitchcock,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and yeah, and so on. So there's a lot of great films. I'm discovering the old films, the old movie stars. So there's a lot of competition.
Did you ever see the Offer show and how they made The Godfather? Because I know they talk a lot about how like the book is a lot different than the movie. Like it's a lot more toned down. And because of like the mafia in New York was making whoever directed it, Paul Ruddy or whoever the producer was, to tone down the movie because it would make the New York mafia look bad. So do you see that from the
I
book to the movie?
I do see that. I see that you could say it was romanticized
Hmm.
and maybe sanitized. It's a hero's journey. It's Michael's journey, even though it's an awful one from being a respectable citizen to becoming a godfather. It's treated kind of as a hero's journey. I can see that, and it wasn't until really The Sopranos came along that these characters were treated as really, human beings, uh, dysfunctional human beings.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
mean, you go the whole movie in The Godfather, you don't really see any like the bad parts of the mafia till the closing montage, which is a masterpiece of a scene from the
right.
jumping back from the church to what's going on, them putting hits on all the cops. That yeah, you're right. That Godfather probably is one of the best written
Okay,
movies of all
okay, so
time.
Warren, tell me about Good Will Hunting. Why that's in your top five?
Okay, obviously, everyone ever knows how good that movie is, and I'm pretty sure it won Best Screenplay
Yeah, it
um,
did.
at the Oscars. But I
Mhm.
mean, it's just like, how can you make a movie with literally no action and have everyone hooked the entire time? Like it's just straight dialogue the entire time,
Mhm.
and it's masterful, and it tells the story
Yeah,
just through words. There's no really
I
anything
mhm.
going on besides the dialogue.
I love that question, Warren. That's a great question. We should always ask ourselves, why are we hooked?
Yeah.
And the lower the stakes, how do they keep us involved? That's I'll look into it myself.
So 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 saying how to get us hooked. The big question in screenwriting a lot of people talk about is structure or characters. What do you think's more important? And don't give me both. Pick
No,
if
I
you had to
like
pick one.
uh, I would pick characters, and
Yeah,
you know, uh,
I'm
the
with you
reason
on
is,
that.
as you know, Warren, I teach screenwriting, and so screenwriting teachers have to share with our students is the craft, and the craft of screenwriting is very famously structure based. You have your plot points and your character arcs and in your screenplay format and all that. So what I have to teach is mostly perhaps about craft and structure.
Mm,
But I think the thing that we don't talk about so much, whether in classes or in screenwriting books or in any kind of writing craft books, is what the character's truth is, and creating characters who genuinely feel like real human beings. And I wouldn't be surprised if The Secret with Good Will Hunting comes down to
Yeah.
that they've created believable characters. Um, so and I listen to interviews with writers and read interviews with writers, and I always appreciate hearing some of my most respected writers talk a lot about the truth of their characters. And what that requires of us as screenwriters is that we don't just develop our craft, but actually have psychological insight into our
Mm.
characters and empathy. And one writer described it as having radical empathy. And that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know one thing. I'm pretty sure I learned this from you actually in your screenwriting one class. Is like when you want to write a good character, you want to write about them before they even appear on the screen. Like you need to know their past to when they finally appear on this screen, that you know so much about this character that it seems real. You can talk about when people like ask me about my characters, I like to talk about what's like not on the screen, like I just said, like their past and how they grew up and why they respond to these certain things. And obviously you have a character arc in each story. So to really make that arc, I think, is you need to understand where your character grew up, like who he was born, how his parents were, how he was treated in high school, how he was treated in college, like all these experiences leading this person to be who he is as soon as we start with him on page one.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Warren. What I think is when we are looking either at a page of a script or some images on the screen, what we should be seeing in those characters is just the tip of the iceberg of the writer's understanding of that character. And the thing is, people reveal who they are in every single moment. And if you know your character well, you can use every single moment in your story to reveal who the character is. But if you don't know them, it will come across. The audience can read that in a second. If these are flat characters and the actors are kind of flailing because they don't know who they are, they're just faking it. People can tell that very, very instantly.
Yeah. And like you said, characters are so important because like you see some of these cult classic movies and these so beloved movies, like I don't know if you ever seen Dazed and Confused or like
Oh
even
yeah.
The Breakfast Club. You care
Mhm.
about these characters so much, you don't really care about what they're doing specifically. Like
Yeah.
you don't
Mhm.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I totally agree. And this is why, like some of these big budget spectaculars, like Transformers kind of movies, and to be honest, this is the way I feel about a lot of the Marvel Universe movies, is they leave me cold because they're not human beings experiencing this.
Mm,
God, wouldn't it be great if you could have one of these big budget spectaculars and genuinely be invested in the characters? Uh,
yeah.
but if they're just stick figures, I don't care, and I tune it out.
Yeah, so what do you think when you do write character, do you think writing a good character takes talent? Because I know sometimes you talk about some people are just talented writers. Like what
Yeah.
does that mean? Like talented in what way? Like do you think that is the talent is building those characters?
I read a lot of novels also, and some of my favorite authors like Sally Rooney, Elizabeth Strout, or Jonathan Franzen, and all contemporary writers. When I read their characters, I could weep because they are so good at bringing these human beings that are as real, they feel as real uh, as you or I do. It's just amazing. And yeah, I do think that's a talent. I mean, that's a lot of brain power, and it's a lot of empathy, very
Experience.
experience, observation of people, and then tons of hard work. Yeah, I think to reach that highest level is just all of the above.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can't leave out any single ingredient.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you have all this great advice, and I mean, your class last or 2 semesters ago was probably the most I've ever learned in a film class so far. So I thank you for that. But I want to learn more about you. I know your story a little bit, but I mean, obviously the people know. I just want to like where you grow up, you know, kind of childhood movies you used to like to watch, and what got you into the film industry.
Well, thank you for asking that, Warren. if we're going to go back to where I grew up, and I sometimes try to figure out how much did that influence who I am.
Hmm.
I had like everybody's childhood is going to be unique and different in its own way, and I'd say that was true of mine. Uh, my father had a real lust for travel and for living overseas. And so we moved around a lot. And he was a real smart guy and was always able to get a job, whether as a businessman or an attorney or a labor negotiator. So he had a lot of jobs. We moved around a lot. And by the time I was 18, he and I once sat down and figured how many different places we had lived, where wherever we were staying, that was our home. And we came up with 50. Uh,
Whoa.
yeah, that's crazy.
Whoa.
So maybe that wasn't the kindest thing to do. Like
That's
I wouldn't do that to
experience.
I wouldn't do that to my dog. I wouldn't uproot my dog that many
Yeah.
times. Yeah, but we lived in a lot of major cities in Germany and England and in the United States. And yeah, I feel I'd love to read as a kid. Maybe because we were moving around so much, the thing that was stability for me were my books. And so I became a great reader. I was very introspective, uh, probably because I kept on having to stand in front of classrooms of new kids over and over again. I think I learned to be pretty outgoing.
Yeah.
So
Have to be.
yeah, so that's my background, and it kind of continued right up until I moved to New Orleans. My wife and I were living in Los Angeles, and we came to New Orleans for a weekend. And she said, "I love this city. Can we move here?" And I said, "Yes." This was something she said every time we visited a city, she would say, "I love this city. Can we move here?" But with when it came to New Orleans, I said yes,
Mm.
and we've been here for 21 years now.
Nice. I've been there for 21 years as well. That's crazy.
Okay. Uh-huh. Funny if we had run into each other right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that'd be possible. I'd still be in the uterus, but but yeah. So how'd you you lived in LA. When did you move to LA? When you got out the
Well,
house?
I was born in LA. I mean, LA
Hmm.
was kind of a place that we had family there that we kept on coming back to. And yeah, finally we did move back to Los Angeles. And I went to junior high school and high school there. And then I went to college in California. But
What
the thing is,
college?
my father, pardon?
What university? You went to film
Uh,
school, correct?
no, I did not go to film school. I
Um,
went to UC Berkeley, and I was an English major.
oh, okay. Writing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was definitely into writing. I might be kind of unusual for screenwriters and film people, which is that I did not always love the movies. I was more about books.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and what I'd say my love for screenwriting has in part grown through working with students. Like it's such a pleasure to take part in other people's creative journey that I've really loved that.
Well, you say you don't love movies, but you have.
Oh, no, no, no more. I wouldn't say I don't
I'm
love
just
movies.
joking. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Okay, no, okay. I'm glad we're clarifying.
I'm about to flame you.
I, yeah, I love movies, but it wasn't an obsession for me the way it is for some people.
Yeah,
Um,
I see exactly what you're saying.
yeah, and I'll say, this is something we could probably get into. Uh, for me, I felt when my brother and I was writing partners with my brother, when we started to have some success in Hollywood in the studio system, it in some ways was very, very exciting, but it was also disillusioning, and I came to feel like there really wasn't the best fit for me.
Mm, yeah, a lot of people are saying that, especially today. Hollywood is
Yeah, well,
pushing a
it's
lot of
true.
people away.
Yeah, Warren, what I see you doing, which I think is really smart, is you seem to be building a team of people. I know you, I know Brian, and I imagine there's some other folks that you seem to be working with. To have a team that you can trust and that you guys can work together, I think is a terrific way to go.
Hmm.
Um, the the way I went in was very much through the studio system, and yeah, it's really geared to the bucks.
Yeah, I took a lot of advice early on, like from people like yourself and other people getting into to industry and film school. And a lot of people preach that it doesn't matter where you're at. So I was like, okay, I know it doesn't matter where you're at, but if I'm just moving around, how am I ever going to build a team? So that's why I was like, okay,
Right.
let's build a team so it doesn't matter where we're at. We can shoot a movie in any state in any whatever, and we can self market it and we can produce it and fund it and all this different things. But when you have a team, that's that is your Hollywood. Like that is you don't have to reach out to all these different, guilds and people and all these different connections you have all over the world. You have your team and it doesn't matter where you're at. You just we need to shoot something, we need to shoot something. We're all in the same mindset, we're all on the same page. Doesn't matter who's getting paid for what. We just got to make a picture. And so yeah, that's what I kind of was thought of is like let's make a team early on. It's loyal to these
Yeah.
guys, stay with them, and we'll all grow together, no matter where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it really well, Warren, which is the team is your Hollywood. Now, do you think you guys, I know that Brian is here in the New Orleans area. Do you guys think you'll be in the same city again?
Yeah, so I don't really know my plans. I'm just really just soaking up everything I can learn in film school right now. I have no idea. I like to travel, but again, I do love New Orleans a lot. It does hold dear to me. I'll never get tired of my hometown.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is where you're at is exactly the right place to be, and that's got to be a good feeling.
Hmm.
One doesn't always know that in life that where you are and what you're doing is exactly the right thing, but I
Yeah.
think that's true for you right now.
Yeah, for sure. But this episode isn't about me. This is about you, Mr. Hansen. So I'm gonna get straight into you've done a big accomplishment that 99% of writers couldn't say they have. You sold a feature film screenplay,
Mhm.
Heart and Souls, starring Robert Downey Jr. to Universal,
That's right. Yeah.
Universal Pictures. And how old were you when you and your brother wrote that?
Let's see, early 30s. I would have been like 32, I think. 31, 32.
31, 32. So how did that all come about? Were you, you know, were you already experienced writing? Were you just kind of writing something? How did that all come together?
Well,
How did
okay,
you
I'll
write
tell
Heart
you.
and Souls?
Okay, I'll give you a brief uh, uh, capsule version of how we got to that point,
Yeah.
and then I'll tell you more about Heart and Souls. So I had been in Europe for a couple of years in my mid 20s, and I really had a wanderlust, and I wanted to do that kind of writing, sort of inspired by the likes of Henry Miller and just sort of have the lust of life experience.
Yep.
And I came back to the States. I was 28, and I had taken quite a bit of time off and was like thinking, what am I going to do with my life now? A lot of my peers had all gone to law school and they were all lawyers now. And uh, my brother had written a screenplay uh, in the year or two while I was gone, and he said, "Would you help me? Would you help me polish this?" And so we did some massive rewrites over the next year, and uh, and wrote, I'd say, a really really good script, and that was our calling card. That was our writing sample. And on weekends, I was working at my dad had a bakery in downtown Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and there was one guy who would come in occasionally and have a cup of coffee and a muffin. And I went up to him one day and I said, "Look, you seem like a really cool guy. You seem like you must know somebody in Hollywood." And he said, "As a matter of fact, my best friend is a producer." And so I said, "Would you show our screenplay to him?" And he did. And the producer was a guy named Todd Black, who's still a very big producer.
Yeah.
And he called us up and said, "Who are you guys? We got to get this going." He helped us connect with an agent. After that, we sold a couple of projects on pitches, and these were sort of development deals.
Yeah.
And those scripts didn't go anywhere. But then my brother had made a short film at Loyola Marymount University called Seven Souls. And it was an encapsulated version of what the feature would be. And so with that
Mm,
script in our pitch, we sold the idea for Seven Souls.
yeah. So it would when he made the short, it was meant to be a proof of concept, or it kind
No, it
of.
was no, not really. It was just that's a really good question. No, it was just a short film. It was a project. It was an MFA project. Uh, but we knew something was there,
Mm,
and it was quite different than our pitch, and then quite different from the movie that turned out. But there was enough there to get people interested.
gotcha. Did you
Yeah.
take
So
any? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I just had a random. I was like, to. I know you like to write and stuff like that. How'd you learn like the basics and like the foundation of screenwriting? Did you read any books? Did you go to seminars, class?
Uh, there weren't so many books back in those days. I
Yeah.
would have read Sid Field's book, and I did take one seminar, and,
Hmm.
and that was about it. It was really by the seat of my pants,
Yeah.
and you know, yeah, I probably should have taken some more classes,
I mean,
but here I am, Warren. Uh,
yeah. I was about to say you've done it right, but they
yeah,
didn't have a lot of
um,
screenwriting books back then, right? They all came out like
uh,
recently.
yeah, they right. It's been over the last 15 years or so that it's been a huge industry. With Save the Cat and all those.
Yeah. I was about to ask you now. What do you think? Like the core. If you had to recommend one screenwriting book, what would it be to a first time? If a student wants to learn how to write, what is the first one they should read?
Easily, it would be writing movies by the Gotham Writers Workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's easily the most accessible and clear introduction to screenwriting, to feature film writing. And Save the Cat is the number one book on screenwriting. But
Yeah.
for me, it's like it's got some really good points, but it also is so much a brand, and it's about promoting its own brand that I think it could be actually unhelpful
Mm,
in some
okay.
ways.
Yeah, I read
But
Save
let's
the Cat. I liked it.
yeah, it's a classic. No, it's good. I've got a version of it right here. This
Oh,
is right.
yeah.
This is
Brian said he's reading that. Is that for
right.
class?
Yeah, it's
Screenwriting too?
that's for class. Yeah, that's
Oh,
for
okay.
TV writing
Nice.
class, and it's actually a very good TV writing book. I like it better than Save the Cat on writing movies.
Yeah, I really appreciated Save the Cat as like I think it was like my third or fourth screenwriting book, and I feel like I wouldn't have understood everything and all like the because it teaches a lot of like bits and a lot of like different
Yeah,
specific genres, specific things you could do to the character. And like after reading Sid Field the screenplay and others, like I feel like it was very helpful to add Save the Cat to my tool bag, not to base my whole script because they kind of tell you like you have to do it this way and Save
right.
the Cat.
Yeah, I don't care for
Um,
that paradigm when they
yeah.
start giving you, page numbers and saying such and
Mm.
such a beat has to happen on page 15. Yeah, that's the approach I don't care for. But like you said, it's great in bits. And if it's part of like just filling out your toolkit, yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, yeah, because it's hard to be creative when you're thinking about, oh, I got to finish this by page 5, or I have to hit this exactly on page 7. And they're like, Save the Cat basically tells you, like, hey, your script's never gonna get sold if you don't hit the twist in page 38. Like, yeah,
You got it.
I really think it does have a lot of like, especially with character development. Like, save the whole concept of Save the Cat of getting you either in the first 5 pages you have to make your main character do something that makes the audience fall in love with them or makes them laugh or something like that. I think that's very insightful.
Yes, when applicable, there are characters who that applies for, but like it also raises the question, what if you have an anti-hero like a
Mm.
Walter White in Breaking Bad, and he's absolutely not going to save any cats or any dogs? How do you make the audience root for him, engage with him? And
Well,
I
I'm pretty
think
sure they say you got to make the audience laugh, like make them have a joke or
Yeah, well,
something.
yeah, but this is where I'm parting company with Save the Cat.
Mm.
I think, like I said, when applicable, if you're writing a comedy, for sure you want to make them laugh. And there are characters if you've got like a standard hero and you want us to like them, by all means, have that beat. But it's also really interesting to me that you can have characters who might be repellent even. Um,
Mm.
uh, Over the last couple of days, I've been crazily binging on this new Netflix show called Black Rabbit,
Oh,
starring,
okay. I've heard about that.
yeah, Jude Law and Jason Bateman. And
Hmm.
these guys are both horrible, yet they're fascinating,
Yeah.
And this is where it comes down to what I was saying before about it. If you create a character who actually feels like an authentic human being, they could be fascinating because people are fascinating.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, Save the Cat is good, is a good toolkit, but if you are not creating dimensional human being characters, uh, yeah, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah, as soon as I read that bit and Save the Cat, just started thinking of because Save the Cat makes it seem like every movie ever made is structured in their way. And I was thinking the first thing I thought of was American Psycho. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, how does what's his name? Patrick Bateman? Patrick Bateman enter the screen. I'm pretty sure he's doing like a morning routine. And I
Mhm.
was like, how
Yeah,
does that make the character likable? Or like what is he doing? He's not making anybody laugh. And then I was just thinking, okay, maybe it's just because it's Christian Bale. But now I get to your point where like, yeah, that doesn't happen in every script. It's so hard to define a movie
mhm.
script to one structure
Right.
besides
And,
like the
and
three act.
Yeah, and what some books do, and Save the Cat falls into this category, they come up with a paradigm and then they will cherry pick examples and they will only give you examples that prove their point and they will leave out lots of exceptions. So I really appreciate, Warren, what you just said, which was your own questioning of what they were saying,
Hmm.
and I feel like that is what's critical for um, for my students is to not just take a book's word for it, not to take my word for it, to
Exactly.
actually investigate these things for yourself. Investigate every aspect of the writing process, the craft, the character development, investigate it all.
And
And
the best way to do that is just to obtain more information. Because if you only read Save the Cat,
mhm.
that's the way you think scripts have to be made. But if you read all these others and you're like, wait, Save the Cat says this says that, it's like you have to make your decision of what works for you. And what do you
Yeah,
think the
what works
truth
for you
is?
exactly. Like there's certain principles of screenwriting, including a couple which I myself have developed that I share with my classes. And ultimately, it's not important to me that they have the same understanding as I do. What's
Mm.
important is that they have their own understanding. And, if they can make it a tool that's valuable for them, uh, that's fine. It's everybody's own individual journey.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree because like I felt like going into writing, I had a lot of talents, like being able to write forever. Like I think that's the best quality I have as a writer is like I don't really get writer's block. I could write 100 pages a day if I wanted to,
Wow.
but I lacked in the actual structure of writing. I lacked in not telling and not showing. I would always in my action lines, I would always, this character is sad, this character is mad. Like you taught me that and you've taught me like the actual structure and how to compress it and all these different things. So I wanted to ask you, what is when you take a screenwriting class, what do you think the most important thing to pull out of that is?
Uh, First of all, Warren, I have to say, I do remember your first screenplays. And yes, there were things that you had to learn, but boy, the talent was there. The characters were just coming to life. I just enjoyed listening to them speak.
I
So,
appreciate that.
yeah. And so you put that, what you had, together with your obvious huge desire for learning and growing. And
Mm,
that's a great combination. So, in my classes, be, I'll tell you sort of like my philosophy where I'm coming from.
yeah.
It is based on my own experience as a screenwriter and also working with thousands of students. I realize that screenwriting is, although it might look easy when a movie is well written and you're enjoying it, a lot of people think, hey, I could do that. It's actually a very complicated, complex intellectual task. And
Mm.
it doesn't just require learning the craft, but also developing a different way of thinking skills, of thinking like a writer and knowing how to solve certain problems in a screenplay. And it's so interesting to me because, like, I'll give my students a book, I'll say, read this, right? And it's full of great ideas, but when they try and go and apply them, it doesn't always work on the page. In fact, it rarely works on the page until they've had an opportunity to really practice thinking like a screenwriter. Um,
Mm.
and so in my classes, we do a lot of exercises where it's almost like boot camp. And I'm trying to like really get them to think this way in a way you might have to like get a pilot in a mock-up cockpit, right? And just practice thousands of hours
Yeah.
of pretending to fly. Or like a doctor might do a lot of practice on cadavers before they operate on somebody. Any case, I think we're practicing to learn thinking skills, and that's a big part of what I think is really important in the screenwriting class. But
Mm.
even more important than that, and it's really simple, is I want my students to develop a discipline when they're watching movies or TV shows and ask themselves, why did the writer do that? Why
Mm.
did they make that choice? Every single minute up on the screen is a choice. There's a ton of thought and intention behind it. And you can really work your way backwards from that and basically understand a huge part of the writer's process.
It's just understanding movies, like
It's
breaking
understanding
down
movie.
movies.
Yeah, and it's sort of choosing a focus. You could do
Mm.
that for editing, you could do that for acting and directing. I like to do it for screenwriting and ask yourself, why that? Why is that character, like you said, like in American Psycho, that if you start with his morning routine, why did we start there? Why in front of the mirror? Why not in front of his closet? Why not in front of his clothes? Why not in bed? All of those are choices, and you can work backwards from there and get inside a writer's mind. And sometimes they will really open up to you and you will really be able to understand. Like you probably remember, Warren, I talk a lot about Breaking Bad,
Hmm.
and what
Greatest
I
show of
love,
all time, according to a
yeah,
lot of people.
okay, according to a lot of people, and it's in my top five. And you Vince Gilligan, among his other talents, he's sort of a master puzzle maker. He puts
Mm.
each episode together like a puzzle, and so it's really fun to deconstruct it and understand why he made all those choices.
Yeah, it's like each episode is a complete puzzle, but it also puts in to the puzzle of the season and then the puzzle of the all the seasons.
Right. Well, I'll give you an example. In season two, because you just set this up perfectly. In season two of Breaking Bad, you might
Hmm.
remember it starts we're looking at Walter White's pool,
Yep.
and there's a charred teddy bear floating in the pool, right? And so we have the question, how did it get there? And apparently the way that started is Vince Gilligan started with that image. I want to have a charred bear in Walter's pool. And then he and his writers had to figure out over the course of an entire season, how are we going to make that feel like the most natural and organic thing that is connected to our story? And it had to be connected to
Mm.
the story. And it's two planes colliding. So how are you going to take this kind of cosmic event of two planes colliding over Albuquerque and this debris falling and tie it to Walter's personal life? And so they had to put the puzzles together. Well, it turns out that Jesse had a girlfriend, um, named Jane. And it turns out that Jane is like him, is also an addict. And it turns out that Jane's father is a air traffic controller in Albuquerque. So those are the puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
and then when you watch the season, it feels completely organic and natural, and and also kind of cosmic.
Yeah. Fits right in. I just speaking of puzzle, did you see
Mhm.
Weapons in theaters? It just came out like a couple
No, I haven't
months
seen
ago.
it.
Oh, it is
No, I haven't.
the whole movie is each character going through their perspective what would happen, getting to a certain point, and then it goes back to the other character, and goes through what they happen, and they all meet up at this one point, and then this
Hmm.
final character complete, like it's like a circle, like you're getting all the sides of the story of how this came to happen, and then the
Right.
final character comes in and it just completes the puzzle.
Wow.
It's great.
Wow.
Every
That's
single, like the whole movie is just backstories, but it all makes sense in the end.
right.
It's
Wow.
really
That sounds
good.
like quite a puzzle. And so for you, it worked when it all came together.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was like mind blown. I was like, this decision of doing this is so
Hmm.
risky. Like it's so hard to execute, but obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a success in the box office as well. But yeah, I just think,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of movies are with the same structure, and just seeing a movie like that, which is completely different from the three act, using just these backstories is just something, a breath of fresh air, something refreshing, something new, something different.
No, it is, Pulp Fiction comes to
Pulp
mind
Fiction.
also.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, yeah. And yeah, how does that work? God knows. It's, that's next level.
Yeah, Tarantino's a genius. What are some other movies you think are pushing the boundaries of writing a little different, you would say?
Uh,
Because there's
huh.
not many. Usually
Mhm.
it is the same structure, but there are the Pulp Fictions. Do you know any other specific ones you can think of?
Well, like a real famous one that like a sentimental favorite of mine is Groundhog Day,
Oh
uh,
yeah. Okay.
where yeah, we're stuck in the same day for 75% of the movie, just
Hmm.
repeating itself over and over again. Yet, like for one thing, there's the setup, which is super clear, which is great. So they bring you into this world. But once it gets established that this is where he's stuck repeating this day over and over again, they do a lot of interesting things with the structure.
Yeah.
Like they'll use montages, they'll speed it up, they'll slow it down, and they always stay one step ahead of the audience. But the other thing I love about it is it's a wonderful love story, and it's a wonderful art. Like the Bill Murray character just has this wonderful arc. He's totally endearing, and so
Hilarious
works
as
both as
well.
a yeah, a warm and heartwarming experience, but also really innovative structurally. Brilliant.
Yeah, oh, that was a good one, Groundhog's Day. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
repeating the same scene over and over and over and over again,
yeah.
and it
And
works.
then there's Memento, which was Christopher Nolan's
Mind
breakthrough film,
blowing.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting. So, what happens when you actually are going backwards? What happens to
Hmm.
screenplay structure? Well, in some places it's still there. In some ways it's still there, right? Is you still are going to have things like plot points and turning points because even though the story is going backwards, the audience experience of it is going forward.
Exactly.
There, yeah,
One
and
of the
so
one of the because it's like this, right? There's one's going forwards and one's going backwards at the same time with the black and white scenes. So like some of the things, like as this story gets to here and this hits and you learn something about that, like then the story that's already passed, then it connects. Oh, that's why that worked. Like the
yeah, well,
audience is information. Like it's all about the audience, right? And the audience is not stupid, so they're gonna
right.
realize things. The story is always going forward in their heads about how much they obtain the information, right? So it's so cool how you can come up with something that like you'll think of 30 minutes before of how this works. It's
Mhm.
crazy. I didn't the first time I watched Memento, I didn't even understand what was going on to the very end.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, that's kind of the idea. It definitely holds up over watching again and again.
Hmm.
So 2 points. One is I'll say my favorite Christopher Nolan is Dunkirk. And
That's
which
the only one I haven't seen.
okay, it has like I think it's three or possibly four different units of time that it's moving at different speeds. So you have
Oh
one
wow.
story that's moving at the pace of minutes, another story that's moving at the pace of hours, and another story that's moving at the pace of maybe a day. And,
Hmm.
and so these interlocking stories happening at different speeds that all come together. Uh, Obviously, Nolan is one hell of a puzzle master.
He loves his time. Every
Yeah,
movie is about
but
time.
but hey, Warren, I wanted to say something though that might be helpful for you and for other uh, people who are getting into screenwriting and starting to break in by making short films uh,
Hmm.
and, and feature films. because you just said something which is really true, is you said that the audience isn't stupid.
Mm,
And, Robert McKee, who wrote the classic book Story, he
yep,
said when the lights go down in the theater, the audience's IQ goes up 20 points.
it
And
does.
so, yeah, people who think that they can condescend to the audience because they're not sharp or making a huge mistake. All of us have seen thousands and thousands of hours of story on screens. And so the audience is smart. And Tony Gilroy, who wrote the Bourne Identity movie,
Mm,
and I think the Bourne Ultimatum also, and now he's doing Andor as a writer
great, great written
showrunner.
show.
Yeah, he's a great writer. A long time ago, he did an interview with um, with the New Yorker, and he said that because audiences are smart and because they've seen so much, that we are in cognitive arms race with the audience. And I love that phrase, a cognitive arms race,
Mm,
which is we have to stay a step ahead of them and never let them get ahead of us. And um, and particularly like for me, like because I teach at the college level with students short films, people tend to love every frame, and you have to fight them to take a frame out. Well, instead, that people should be fighting to keep frame to I'm sorry, yeah, people should be fighting to get the frames out, right, instead of keeping them in.
yeah,
Yeah, short films tend to be too long, and what you don't want is the audience to have fully absorbed the information, whether it's story information or character information, and then be waiting for the next beat. You want to give them the next beat before they're waiting for it.
yeah, for sure. Especially with all these critics. If a critic is a step ahead of your movie, then it's gonna get dogged on.
Well, it's true, and particularly because they pride themselves on that.
Yeah,
That
oh, I seen it coming. They love to
they
say
live
that.
for that. They live for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I got a couple questions I wrote down
Yeah.
I wanted to specifically ask you because obviously this podcast I really just want to, you know, as I'm learning on my journey, just help other film students around the world, maybe that don't even have access to universities to learn from, industry professionals like yourself and teachers of how to do these things. And I feel
Yeah.
like screenwriting, as many books as there are, a lot of people have a lot of misunderstandings of how to get started or how to actually get in the industry world of screenwriting. It's really
Right.
a hard business. There's how many scripts uploaded to the WGA year? It's like 38,000 or something crazy like that, and it's competitive.
Oh,
So
super
I just want to
competitive.
ask you a couple questions to maybe help people watching just to take that one step closer of achieving to be a professional screenwriter.
Yeah, well, I'll remind you, I described my experience of breaking in, which there was a random guy who came into my father's bakery, and
Yeah.
I said, you seem cool. Do you know anybody in Hollywood?
But
Okay,
that's
so
most experiences. But you got to be ready for that moment to happen.
well, that's what I was just going to say, Warren. So, that moment, I found a little chink in the wall around Hollywood. Obviously, once I went through that chink, it closed up, right? That's never going to happen for anybody again.
Hmm.
But I think people, you know somebody who knows somebody, these days you've got screenwriting contests and you've got,
Yep.
you know, uh, you've got new avenues. You have some agencies that even accept unsolicited
Emails.
work. Yeah, but here's the thing. This is for me. Yes, finding the right person to read your script is definitely a huge concern. But for me, the bigger concern is make sure you're ready. Make sure
Exactly.
your script is ready.
In
You know,
hand.
in hand and so good. You want it to be so good, so ready, such a movie that when the person reads it, they have no choice but to give you a call. And
Exactly.
I've seen the way Hollywood works, the agents and producers. If they find like a really exciting script by a new writer, they will gladly share it with people. They can't wait, right? They will pass it around. So what you just want to make sure is if you have a contact I think you're only going to get one shot at that pair of eyeballs. You know,
Hmm.
if you don't impress them the first time, you're done. So you got to make sure you're ready. So I think really the secret to breaking in is making sure your script is that good.
And that's why the first 10 pages are so important because
Yeah.
if you don't get them in the first 10, they're probably just going to close. They're probably just going to next email, close the
Well,
script.
well, yes, but in some ways, some of that is easily avoidable. Within those first 10 pages, it should be a smooth read. It should look good on the page. You want to see a
Mm,
lot of white spaces. You want it to be a vertical read, pulling the eye down the page. You don't want to have any misspellings. You don't want to have poor punctuation. Most people, and this is the good news, Warren, most people shoot themselves in the foot on page one.
mm.
You don't even have to read page two. Most people have shot themselves in the foot with page one. But then, yeah, also you want to make sure that the that those first 10 pages work. And for me, like one secret to that is don't think of your first 10 pages as setup. You know, your story starts on page one, and you're trying to listen to the story from page one.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to give how you've written your scripts or you just what do you think about someone who's got an idea.
Mhm.
How do they start? Staring at the blank page, what's the best way to start writing your script? A feature film.
Well,
Let's get
yeah,
in that aspect.
my sense is that there are few people um, who really love staring at a blank screen or a blank page and can just start writing. Like I think Stephen King, who's a mad genius, I think he can start with the blank page and just start writing, fade in, and start the story. What a lot of people do, this is what most screenwriters do, is we want to develop a lot of development material. I think of it as clay, is you want a
Hmm.
lot of clay to shape, so brainstorm. Don't get all analytical at all. Just throw all your ideas down. Create a wish list of possibilities, character arcs, action, visuals, uh, mood. I think it's mistake to start. Basically, I think impatience is a problem all around. And I think
Yeah.
just sort of letting yourself really enjoy the creative process where anything is possible until you've created a big mound of clay, and then you can start molding it. So yeah, hopefully when you write fade in and you've got that blank screen, you are anxious to get started because you've got so much great material that you're ready to turn into a screenplay. And I know there's some writers who actually do these notes that I'm talking about in final draft. So, so in a way, they never face a blank screen because their notes are in the same document that the
Yeah.
screenplay first grows out of.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you you get all these ideas. Do you personally did you like to structure out your act one, your act two, your main plot points, or do you just like to start typing and just see where the road takes you?
I have done that. I have done trying to see where the road takes me, and that usually gets me to about page 43. Uh,
Hmm.
and then I need a map. And so generally I do better by mapping out a structure, and it's going to change. And it's funny, the thing that you think is the midpoint in the middle of your screen almost always really needs to be plot point one, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
you're going to have to take 30 pages out, but go ahead, just I like to come up with a little structure and then get started.
Yeah, that's with me. Like when I when I wrote my feature script, I uh I brainstormed for about a month and I've got about good 12 pages of notes and ideas.
Um,
And I ended
mhm.
up just writing all 140 pages from page one straight on in like a month, maybe 50
My
days.
goodness.
I was also
Right.
sick, so I had nothing else to do. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is a bad way to write, but I'm just obsessed with actually just like putting myself in the world, putting my
Yeah.
headphones on, listen to some movie scores where I think would be in the movie, and just like learn as the characters would go and
Yeah.
just write the story as I'm watching it for the first time. Which
Yeah.
also it led me to a lot of rewrites, like a lot of
Sure.
rewrites. But I don't know, I just felt like the experience of doing it that way just was
Well, yeah,
super exciting for me.
yeah. So I think that was a great approach, Warren. It seems to me like by doing that, you did not let yourself get stuck by perfectionism. You
Hmm.
just kept writing and writing and writing and discovering your characters in your world until you got to page 140. Uh, I as a writing advisor, I've worked with some professional screenwriters, and what's been interesting to me is something they like to do is write a vomit draft, as they call it, and just go blah, right? And just
Yeah,
get everything down on the page and just take perfectionism out of the equation. And
exactly.
yeah, and that's how you get to the end of the script. And then sure, like at that point you got to do a lot of rewrites, but you're not dealing with the blank page.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean that's the biggest thing everyone talks about is this writer's block. They're terrified of writer's block, and when they get it, they're stuck. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, I just feel like I think you can always write something. I think even if it's bad, you can write 3 pages a day, and that's the way. I mean, inspiration comes with experience, right? So writing is the best way to get rid of it.
It is great. And really is looking upon it, whether you're getting paid or not, as a job, and your job is to have your butt in the chair every day. That is how screenplays happen. That is how books happen. Uh,
Mm.
just be there, and the muse will find you.
Repetition. What do they say? It takes 10,000 hours to master a skill.
Yeah, how many years is that?
Gosh,
That's a
a
lot.
lot. 10,000 hours. I don't know if that's a 24. I can't do math. I'm a creative. It's a
Okay,
long
well,
time. I think it's like a
it's a
year or
long
two.
time. It's a lot, but
Yeah.
what I think is, instead of finding that daunting, one should find it reassuring. It's like, understand, for a while, you're just going to be an apprentice. And, I think for me, the idea would be to take judgment out of it, take the
Mm.
self-judgment, self-criticism out of it. Just say, okay, I'm still in working towards my 10,000 hours. And the main thing is to keep doing it.
What do you think is a common mistake film students have as screenwriters? What do you see a lot?
Well, a lot it's the basics of telling, not showing.
Hmm.
Uh, it's yeah, some of the mechanical stuff of just like being too wordy, feeling like they're writing a novel, and,
Hmm.
not understanding that a screenplay has to have forward momentum. It's interesting. Like the prose of a screenplay, you want it to be lean and mean. It has to be tight and economical, so you keep that pacing of a movie. But it also needs to be very vivid and 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 immersive. So it is a special kind of writing, and I do see students struggling to find their voice with it.
And what is that? I've been trying to think about this the last couple of days. You gave us a term in class, um, about using like the setting and the actual location to like influence the script. What was that word again?
Well, are you thinking economy?
Yes, economy. Exactly. Can you
Yeah,
explain to us what economy is? Because I haven't learned it from anyone else but you so far.
yeah, that's true. No, as far as I know, I'm the only person who teaches
You're
it,
the founding
and
father of economy.
yes, and I'm actually working on a book on it. Uh,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so economy is it's a basically the idea that a screenplay or a movie exists on two levels. On one level here, this is the level where you have the story world and where the character lives and where this person which seems to come to life like a real person, right? And
Mm,
ideally, this is an illusion which will hold for the entire story. We're going to interact with this person as if they were a real person.
yeah.
But below that is a level where the writer is creating the world and moving people and places and objects around in order to tell the story. So there's a ton of design happening below the surface. And so things have to feel natural, but the writer is compressing and connecting and designing the world of the story to better tell the story. Um,
Crazy.
and like something I like, real basic one that I talk about is economy of characters. Is that writers create connections between characters in order to enhance the story. Um,
Hmm.
you know, both because it's true in real life. In real life, there are people we have in our circle in our family where we work, and a lot of our lives unfold interacting with them, and we take that truth and we shape it to better tell our story. For example, Vince Gilligan was creating a story about a high school chemistry teacher who becomes a meth cook, right?
Hmm.
And so he has this character, Walter White, and he's thinking, who can I put in Walter's world that will really, really do a lot for the story, that will enhance it, that will bring conflict and raise the stakes? So he creates the character of Hank Schrader, uh, who's an agent in the local DEA office, and he makes Hank Schrader Walter's brother-in-law. So there's
Mm.
this connection created by the writer,
That's
and what it's
economy.
going to do, it's going to take every family dinner and event, and every time these guys get together for the next 5 seasons, and it's going to add a level of subtext and a level of tension, and ultimately it's going to totally intersect with the plot. So that's an example of economy, or Star Wars. Um, Star Wars at first, it feels like it's about this whole vast universe, uh, and the galaxy is our background, but it turns out that it's really a family drama.
Yeah.
Darth Vader is Luke's father, Leia is his sister, Obi-Wan Kenobi lives around the corner from him,
Yep.
and well, you see what it does. It makes for a smoother cinematic flow to have these connections.
If not, movies would be 10,000 hours.
That's
It'd be the
part of
span
it.
of their lifetime.
Yeah, but it's not just for movies. Like I've thought about this and gone way back. Like you can go all the way back to the Iliad by Homer, which is
Mm.
about the Greeks' war against the Trojans. And that was a war that unfolded over many years. And the Iliad, his story of it, is compressed to the final weeks
Yeah.
of the war. And you had thousands and thousands of warriors, and he compresses the characters to a handful of
Yeah.
major characters, Achilles and Hector and Patroclus, and they keep on crossing each other and battling each other. And then the locations are simplified to like a couple of battlefields. So this is inherent in storytelling, going all the way back. We compress and we connect and we design because that's how you tell a good story.
Are you ready for the Odyssey?
Uh, yes, yes, put it in motion. Absolutely, put it in
Yeah.
motion. Yeah. Well,
Did you
yeah.
read the Odyssey? I'm guessing you
Oh,
did.
yeah, I have. Yeah, I when I was a kid, I loved Greek mythology and
Oh,
and
me too.
and Roman history and all that.
I had a class in when I was like sixth grade, and we read like the kid version of the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I was super hooked at the time. I knew
Yeah, me.
all the I kind of
Mhm.
lost it now, but I knew all the Greek gods, what they meant, all of the even the like the what is the planets? That's the not the Norwegians, the Roman gods names. Um or
Right.
what
Well, like
isn't
yeah,
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 isn't like
Mars and Jupiter and yeah, and Venus, of course. Yeah, right.
uh-huh. That was the
Like
Roman gods, right?
those are the Roman gods. Yeah,
Got it,
yeah.
got it.
So the Greek gods were Zeus and Hermes and so on.
What's a book you obviously love to read? What's a book you read that if you could pick one book that you've read that hasn't been adapted into a screenplay, what would it be?
Hmm. God, there was, I don't have an answer right off the top of my head, but I have to say, yeah, there was a book I read recently that I was very interested in, but it's I can't get a hold of it right now.
Mm. I seen The Long Walk, the Stephen King adaptation. It came out a couple like 2 weeks. I think it came out last week, actually. I got to see it early, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
It's just
good.
the characters. It was the concept. I don't know if you've read it, but the concept was it was kind of like Hunger Games, but they took one kid from every state and they made him walk on this road, and the last person to stop walking wins. But everyone who stopped walking, they would kill on the spot. So it was
Okay.
very interesting how people
Uh-huh.
were dying. It was super interesting of all the different ways they killed him off. And but the best part was is out of the 50 kids, there was probably like 12 of them that you really cared for, you really wanted to win. Like I could definitely see everyone choosing different sides
Mhm.
of who they wanted to win this walk. And it was kind of
So-
obvious who the
mhm.
final two would be because I mean, you
Right.
have to define the main characters. But yeah, I mean, I caught myself mid like every 10 minutes wanting someone else to win. So just being able, yeah, what I was going to ask you that, what's a good way to make the audience and the reader care just as much as about the side characters as they do for the main characters? Like, how do you make a dynamic, round, well built side character?
Well, again, it goes to spending time with them. I mean, as the writer, thinking about them, getting under their skin, understanding, among other things, that nobody is a side character in their own life or in their own
Mm,
head. All of us are contradictory human beings, and I think just as a tool, if you wanted a tool to realize that everybody is contradictory. No person thinks I'm a villain and I'm going to laugh maniacally, right? Even the bad guys in a story are feeling they're doing the best they can, right?
yeah.
They need something, they want something, and they're just doing the best they can. So in their own mind, they are the heroes of their story. And it's interesting you ask this, Warren, because like I said, I was crazily binging Black Rabbit until 3 a.m. last night, and uh, and it was interesting because there are side characters who are merely side characters for most of the show, and then every once in a while it turns its attention to them, and you find yourself caring about them. So I was asking myself this very question: how do they do it? And I would say in the case of this story, it was a lot about their vulnerability, you
Mm.
know, seeing something we could really relate to, their human vulnerability and how they were stuck in some very unjust relationships.
Um, yeah, that's that was a crazy point you just made that like the side characters aren't side characters in their mind. Like they're the main characters in their story. Everyone's the main character in their story. So yeah, it
Yeah,
just
and
makes
I
me
tell
think
you,
going
oh, I
back
was
on
gonna
my
say,
scripts,
oh, go
I
ahead.
need to take more time with the side characters as much as the main characters.
Well, it's this interesting discipline that Robert McKee lays out in his book Story. I mentioned it earlier, and
Mm,
he really clarified this for me. And he talks about our need as writers to empathetically and psychologically connect with one character in a scene. If you've got like three characters in a scene, connect with one, ask yourself, what would I do? How would I feel if I were this person in this situation? And then you got to pop out and then go into the other person and ask yourself the very same thing. And
whoa.
this is where just we have to develop as writers, we have to develop that muscle of empathy and psychological insight. And it's dazzling the way some writers can do that, and it just takes practice.
'Cause I think a lot of the problem is when we are writing, we're like playing God, right? We're playing with their action figures and we're getting them to talk of how it would make the best scene. But yeah, you really do have to put yourself in each perspective to get the
Yeah.
realest reaction possible.
Yeah. So, Warren, sometimes I realize when I'm reading somebody's screenplay, just in the language that they use, I realize that while they're writing, they are imagining that they are seeing this on a screen, right?
Hmm.
In a sense, they are describing what they see is on the screen. But what that does is it puts them at a remove from their story and their characters. And so I'll say, no, don't imagine that you're watching this on a screen, right?
Yeah.
You are in there, you are amongst them, you are them. And yeah, that's what we got to do.
Yeah, for sure. To get the most authentic, real dialogue, the real characters, the real relatable. Another question I had for you, more of an industry side question, is like how do you obviously we preach that we should get notes from other people and we should get other perspectives on our scripts. So how do you balance
Mhm.
like your own instincts versus the producer or the collaborators on your script telling you different things?
Yeah, that can be a very tough situation I've experienced, Warren. That's a good point. Uh, I would say first thing that would be helpful is have your own trusted reader and know
Mm,
that this person is your baseline, and that they share your sensibility, you know them well, you've talked a lot, and they're not going to steer you wrong. So you need that, because otherwise it's very hard to stay centered. And then
yeah.
when money gets involved, it gets even harder because now there are people who feel they have a right, and maybe in some sense they do have a right to influence the script.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you gotta, I think, stick to your guns when you can, and you just have to find this balance. You don't want to be a total squish, and you don't want to act like, hey, okay, why don't this person is God now, and they can tell you exactly what to do. You can't do that, but nor can you be completely rigid and never ever be flexible or willing to take notes. So somehow you have to you find your way through these difficult situations.
Yeah, that's when I feel like being an actual good, genuine person and good communicatively,
Mhm.
to be able to just communicate. Like if there's a producer trying to change this because of budget reasons or actor reasons, be like, hey man, like this is gonna mess up. This could mess up the story. This could shift. This could completely
Yeah,
screw up the pacing. Like
right.
you just got to be able to communicate and actually connect and make them understand like, hey, this change, I know you're making this change, for the budget or for this different thing, like tactically, but it might mess up it might make the whole pyramid fall across. And that's when
It
building
will,
relationships with the people you're working with
right.
helps out so
But
much.
that happens, and that happens all the time,
Yeah.
right? Is you see films that you feel there was a great film in there, but there was some horrible compromise along the way. Maybe they cast somebody they shouldn't have cast, for financial reasons, and you blew out the authenticity of the story. Um,
Mm.
so it happens. This is a big business. It's a multi-billion going on trillion-dollar business. So unfortunately, even if you've assembled your great team, like I think you're doing, Warren, you're still not going to win every battle.
No, for sure not.
Yeah. Uh, and that's why I feel like, let's say you had to change the location, you had to change a character. Uh, it's good if you can fall back on your deep understanding of your own characters. Um,
Mm.
you know, and so maybe a new plot development will come out of that. So instead of the character serving the plot, or maybe it's the plot serving the character.
All right, I want to end this episode out on a very important question.
Okay.
You're on a plane and the engine goes out. It's coming down. It's
Mhm.
about to crash. You're about to
Mhm.
land on this abandoned island, and you can only take one movie to watch for the rest of your life. What movie are you grabbing? Also, don't fly Spirit.
Because then it might happen.
Yeah,
Uh,
50-50 shot.
mhm.
One
Let's
movie,
see.
think of rewatchability. Think
Mhm.
of, your personal favorite. Think of a good movie. What would be the movie you'd have to grab? And it's going down. So, first
Right.
instinct, what pops in your head?
It would have to be characters that I love. It might inappropriately be Groundhog Day
Okay.
because because I'm
Comedy
about
helps too. Comedy's
because
rewatchable.
I'm about to live it.
Yeah,
Uh,
literally.
how about you,
Yeah.
Warren? What's your movie?
Jeez. Thanks for asking. I don't
Yeah.
know. I always say first instinct I think of Star Wars New Hope, 1977. It's kind of the first movie I ever fell in love with. And
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, it's great. You got the world building, you got the characters you care for. Um yeah, I'd probably be that. Maybe Interstellar. I like Interstellar a lot. And
Mhm.
oh, let me rephrase that. Good Will Hunting is the greatest movie ever made, so I'd probably take that.
Okay, good. Now we have closure, Warren.
Yeah.
We've closed the circle.
It's the thing about that is like the rewatchability. There really isn't much going on, but since it is the best written movie of all time, it's rewatchable.
Okay, at some point you and I'll have to have another conversation. We'll debate that point.
Yeah, we need to have a full on debate of why it is, and maybe we have to sit down and watch it together, and then we can break it down scene by scene
Now
of
that would be
every
fun.
single line. What do they say about line? Every single line needs to either advance the plot, tell a joke. It's three things. You ever heard that term?
Well, I've heard a variation on it. Yeah, I do, like I said, like I like the idea of making every frame of a movie earn its place there in some way. Yeah.
Mm,
So character development, plot advancement. Uh, I think story world is also very important. There could be a social context that we need to develop. So I think it's a few ways. I mean, more than just two or three that a frame of movie can justify itself, but it must. And I'll just say one more thing that it needs to have. It needs to have new information,
mm.
right? So if you've already made a beat, we've already established something, got to move on to the next beat.
Audience is smarter than you think. They remember.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on so much. First screenwriting episode. Next time I bring you on, we'll probably get more into like something specific of like how to build the
Well, yeah,
antagonist.
yeah, let's choose a movie and let's dig into it. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But I just
Hey,
want to kind
Warren,
of get the
yeah,
basics
go
on
ahead.
it today.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. It was really a pleasure to reconnect with you and to have this conversation.
Yeah, yes, sir, for sure.
It was a good one.
Hope to talk to you soon. I got some
Okay,
stuff
Warren.
for you coming soon. So,
Okay, okay. I know. I'm sure.
Welcome to Filmmakers.
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 Hey, the filmmakers.
Journey.
And take your seat. The journey of a lifetime is about to begin.